Hi there, Ronnie here, coming at you with something a bit different. Um, a week or so ago, I was doing this online family quiz um, that I have with a couple of my nephews and his friends, and that's all very fine, and I enjoy that very much. But my nephew Andrew had one of his neighbours over, and they'd said that they'd been playing Monopoly and so on, and rather flippantly, kind of gaming snob that I am at times, I kind of went, oh God, I could give you 10 games right now I'd rather play. So Andrew rather decided, put your money where your mouth is, Uncle Ryan. So I made a list of 10 games I would rather play than Monopoly. Now, I have to say there are hundreds of games I would rather play than Monopoly, but I wanted to do a list of 10 games that are either substitutions, which some of these are, or are games where money is a big part of the game, either because the amount you have is how you win, or you need to, the game needs you to acquire money in order to get money, to get things that help you get to win the game. So first of all, why do I have a bugbear about Monopoly? Well, essentially, there are three reasons I'm not a big fan of Monopoly. And they're kind of interconnected. They all kind of mold into each other. First of all, is it's far too random. You don't really feel like there's any great skill or strategy or tactics involved in the game. You're at the mercy of those dice. There's very little way of mitigating for them. And you can't really build. There's a lot of luck involved. Then there's the fact that the game is far too long for how simple it is. I don't have a problem with long games. I've played long games. Long games are long. But I've played long games and they're fine if that's what you want to play. I've played games that are 4, 5, 6 hours long. In fact, I played Twilight Imperium. The game we had of that was like 11 hours long, 11, 12 hours long. And that was fantastic. But that's because there was that amount of game in there. Monopoly can run 2, 3 hours sometimes, and there's just not enough game there at all. So I'm not happy with it on that. And third and foremost, player elimination. I'm not a big fan of that at all. I don't like player elimination games. One of the games I'm going to mention does have player elimination in it, but there's a big mitigating factor to it for me, which I'll get to. And they all kind of meld into each other. The reason I find player elimination so difficult, so annoying with Monopoly is because of the random element. You don't really feel that it was because of a bad decision you made or a bad move, that there was a strategy or a tactic you should have done or shouldn't have done, and that got you knocked out of the game. It's all too random, and because of the elongated time frame, people who get knocked out early through no good, through no fault of their own, just bad luck of the die, can find themselves twiddling their thumbs for hours. I have a similar problem with Risk. So anyway, what I'm now going to do is my 10 games, and these are essentially going to fit into 3 sort of sections. The first 3 games I'm going to talk about are very light games that aren't particularly similar to Monopoly, except that economics is a major factor in it. But they're fun games for families. The next three are, for me, direct substitutions. Don't play Monopoly, play one of these three if you want that Monopoly game but better. And the final four are a little more involved, but they're heaps and bounds better. There's a lot of heavier economic games that I own that I have not put in this list, simply because they're games that I wanted to put in that I thought your everyday family could play, you know, the kind of ages 10 and up. So, starting with the three kind of lighter ones. We start with this one, which is Happy City, which it's a points-based game. But you need money to buy buildings for your city. The first person who once someone has built a 10th city, everyone has an equal number of turns, and then the game ends. How you score is interesting. You'll see that some of the cards here have hearts on them. This has got 2 hearts here. This one here has got 1 population. There's ones with 2 and 3 and so on. I mean, you can see a 3 as a special card there. And what you do is, at the end of the game, you'll add up all the hearts that are on all your cards, and you'll add up all those green population, and you multiply them together. So if you've got 8 hearts in total and 7 population in total, you've got a score of 56 points. And that's your score. I like this game. It's a real. I mean, it's effectively an engine builder. The reason I would play this over Monopoly is simply the speed of it. It's very easy to set up. There's no player elimination, which is so much nicer. It really is. Next up, more money. More money is you starting a lawnmower business and you putting together a lawnmower business and trying to bid for contracts for people's to mow their lawns. Now, you want to make the most money, but it's the person who makes the lowest bid that will win the contract. So obviously you don't want to bid too low because you want to make some money, but you don't want to bid too high because someone will undercut you. And you can buy better lawnmowers, or they can do more stuff. It's a lovely wee family game, this. I don't get it onto table often enough, actually. But it's a fun wee game, and I enjoy it. Final one for the sort of light ones is this one, which is Big Money, which is just so much fun. Effectively, that's the board. Yes, there's an insane amount of randomness based on the fact that you're rolling dice, but it's mitigated by the fact that Yahtzee style, you're rolling 5 dice up to 3 times to get the best combination to get a certain amount of money. You're then using that money to buy businesses that will help generate more money. The 6th die is what they call the industry die. 5 sides of that, each of them have like a different industry. If you have that industry in front of you, if that industry gets rolled on your turn or another player's turn, then you'll get that amount of money on the card. So even when it's not your turn, you can still be generating cash. The other one is called the Biz News. It's like a little broken piggy bank. The Biz News card deck is like, if you take all the community chest and chance cards and take out all the good ones and just leave the nasty ones in there, because there are no good cards in the Biz News deck. The only thing you can hope for is that it doesn't apply to you. You know, it might apply to a particular business, but you don't have that kind of business. So you don't get hit by it. You know, or everyone with stock cards have to return them without getting any money for them. As long as you know, that doesn't hurt you if you don't have stock cards. So that's the best you can do, really, is hope that you don't get the stock cards. It's a lovely wee game. It plays. I say it plays very fast. It can drag a little just due to the nature of random rolling. If people are rolling quite poorly and they're not really getting that money, because the game ends when the money runs out, and then you add up your money. You don't add up values of businesses at that point. Businesses are nothing at that point. They're just there to generate cash. They don't actually give you any in-game points or money. It's just cash in hand. And it's a lovely, simple game. Bloody cheap and all. Actually, the same can be said for More Money as well, which is very cheap if you can find it. For sale on places like eBay. It's very, very cheap to buy these days, which is a bit of a shame. Sometimes you get games that they just don't seem to grab the zeitgeist, which I think is a shame. But there you go. So next is direct substitutions. And I've got this in a deck box, but Monopoly deal. No, I'm not cheating. Monopoly deal, quite simply, is all the viciousness of Monopoly cut down to about 10 minutes. I'll show you a couple of the cards. That's a industry card, right? A past gold card that lets you pick more cards out of the deck. Basically, the winner of the game isn't the person with the most money or eliminating anyone, because there's no player elimination in this game. The winner is the person who is first to get 3 complete sets of properties done. So you can technically win it with 6 cards, because you could get the 2 utilities. You can get Mayfair and Park Lane. Yes, I have the UK edition. I know there's a US edition with the different ones for them, and then Old Kent Road and whatever the other brown one is. But most properties, as you know from a regular board, have 3 and so on. You start with a hand of 5 cards, you pick up 2 cards from the deck, and you can play up to 3 cards, including none if you don't want to play any. The only thing is you have a hand size of 7, a hand limit size of 7. So if you want to play, if you stop your turn, you know, you've played all your cards that you're going to play, and at the end of your turn you get more than 7 cards in your hand, you have to discard down to 7. Mean, nasty, vicious, love it. And it plays in about 15-20 minutes, which is its major selling point, and it's bloody cheap and all. Next is, let's get this the right way. This is Destination Scotland. Now there's a few destination games. Some of them involving countries, some of them involving towns. There's a couple of novelty ones as well. I mean, I've got Destination Christmas. And my daughter, Saffron, well, she's got Destination Christmas as well. But she also has Destination Hogwarts. But this is Destination Scotland, which is a map of Scotland with roads everywhere. And effectively, you are taxi drivers trying to earn the most fares at the end of the game. So it is a game where you're trying to earn the most money at the end of the game. It is a roll and move game, and if you're doing particularly badly with rolls, it can take you an age to get anywhere, because you get destination cards, which is effectively fares, And when you get to those, you don't have to roll exactly to get to a place. You just have to get there, and then you can stop. And you'll hand in that card, and you'll get that amount of money from the bank. However, there's one really good, really, really, really good mechanic in this game, which absolutely wins me over and makes it an interesting game for everyone. If someone else lands on a destination that you have in your hand, you reveal it, and instead of getting that fare from the bank like you would if you'd landed there, you get that fare from that player. So you're playing with David. David lands on John O'Groats. You've got the John O'Groats card. Let's say it's £30 fare, £30 fare. You reveal that card. David has to give you £30. That's a great leveler. It means that even if you're doing really badly in terms of actually trying to get to destinations yourself, you're constantly watching what other players are doing in case they reach your destinations for you. It also means that every time you move, you run the risk of finishing your move right where some other player needs, which means every move is filled with tension. No matter if it's a big, you roll a really high number and you get a big spurt on, or a short move. Either way, where you land could cost you. I really like it. I like it. I slightly prefer the simplicity of Destination Christmas over Destination Scotland, but it doesn't actually matter because they're still great games. There's no player elimination for those destination games, so everyone can get in on it. And I really enjoy it. And I think it's a great wee game. And if someone wants to play Monopoly, I'd be like, you want to try Destination Scotland instead? But if they're determined to play a game with the same sort of meanness and player elimination and bankrupting the hell out of people and be the last person standing, then Hotel Tycoon. It has player elimination, which, as I've said before, I'm not a fan of. But here's the kicker for this one and why I think it works. It plays in less than an hour. So even if someone's eliminated, they're not going to be sitting for very long. This game is brutal. The little pieces actually aren't cars in this edition. They're aeroplanes. I don't know why they're aeroplanes. Cars would actually have made more sense. And in terms of actually moving around the board, cars would have been a lot better. But they're aeroplanes, such is life. It is about player elimination. It is about bankrupting other players. You're moving around the board. You're trying to build a hotel complex. Certain amount of buildings, a sort of the kind of outdoor area for it. Trying to build entrances along the route. When you're trying to build a hotel, when you decide you're going to build a hotel, you've got to roll this hotel die. And the hotel die will either say, yes, you can. No, you can't this round. Or, yeah, but you've got to pay double. Or, yeah, and you can get it for free. So, there's a lot of luck involved. But again, the game doesn't drag because it will play in less than an hour. But how you lose money. I mean, in Monopoly, when you land on someone's space, there's a specific amount based on the amount of, whether you've just got a property or whether you've got houses on it or whether you've got a hotel on it. But there's a specific amount. Similar with this, except for one thing. When you land on a space and you have to pay someone, you roll a 6-sided die. And there's a little table at the back of each hotel card that shows how far along the building of the hotel complex you are and how many nights you've stayed, which is that 6-sided die roll. And that will determine how much you pay. The more along the hotel complex has been built, the more nights you stay, the more money you're spending. And it gets worse. If you've put down a few entrances to that hotel and say I roll and I land on there and I got to pay money, comes round to my turn again and I roll really badly and I land at another entrance to that hotel, I've got to roll that 6-sided die again and pay more money. So it can be, you can create, particularly in the corners, you can create really, really vicious choke points where people are constantly paying you money. And because of that, the game can be extremely swift. Is there any real tactics to it? There are some. I couldn't in all honesty claim that it wasn't without some tactical or some strategic nounce as to what kind of which hotels to sort of invest in. The only complaint I really have, because this is a kind of cheap and cheerful family game, which I don't actually have a problem with in and of itself, but those buildings you see are actually just a card, very thin card that you kind of fold, and then the roofs are actually plastic pieces which kind of hold the card together. I get it, but they're fiddly as hell to put together. I would love to get, I mean, a couple of them are kind of plastic buildings, particularly a dome and the ice pieces, the ice kind of hotel piece, but mostly they're cards. I would love to get some 3D resin, printed 3D resin versions of those hotels. I would love that. I think that would be something I would love to get. I think it would make the game just pop a little more, and make it a wee bit easier and a wee bit less fiddly to put to table. But having said that, it's still a great family game, and I would recommend it highly. I really would. Of all the games I'm mentioning here, that one is the one that's closest spiritually to Monopoly, and it's the one that I would definitely say, if someone wants to play Monopoly, try them with that one, because it's everything but better, and more importantly, far quicker to play. As I say, I'm not against a long game at all, but this is a game that's far, this is more the length Monopoly should be, and it seems to have tweaked the formula enough to make sure it is the length that Monopoly should be, and I like it for that very much. So my final four are games that I can't really claim that any of these were in any way associated with Monopoly, other than the fact that A, the economic is a major factor in them, and B, I just think they're better games. Although, if I look through my collection, a lot of these would fall under they're just better games. So, first of all, Pan Am, which is an interesting one because Pan Am makes you think that it's going to be a game where you're going to make routes and get money in for routes and be the person with the most money and maybe try and beat Pan Am. But ultimately, it's not about that. Because Pan Am is going to take over your route eventually. So, in a way, you're actually building the best route you can to make it more profitable when Pan Am take it over. You then use that money to buy shares in Pan Am. And in the game, the winner is the person with the most money in Pan Am, the most shares in Pan Am. And everything that's worked off a board with basically a worker placement mechanic in several sections. As you're creating better routes, getting better planes, and so on and so forth. And it's a really good game where, yes, the person is economics is how you won the game, but it's the person with the most shares, and that makes it a little different. I really like this game. I think this game is woefully underappreciated. I think it's a solid game. And I think it's well worth people tracking down, if I'm absolutely honest. I really do. From the sublime to the ridiculous, which is Last Will, which I got from my daughter. I've also since got the Getting Sacked expansion, which comes on this. And this game is effectively Brewster's Millions in board game form. Again, it's a worker placement game. And money is how you win the game. But Brewster's Millions, it's about losing the money. You're basically going for broke. You're trying to spend the most money and have no assets at the end of it. The game ends immediately if someone has no money and no assets, and they immediately win. Either that or run to 7 rounds, and at the end of that, whoever has the least money is the winner. And least money includes property and other assets. So yes, you could spend an exorbitant amount of money buying a property. But as long as you still own that property, it's still money to you. You can't, you running out of money won't matter because you still have that asset, which you would then have to sell, which means you've got money, which means you got to get rid of it. There are ways to try and run the place down, so you sell it at a loss. There's places on the board to make properties less valuable. I love this game. Getting Sacked introduces employment to the mix, where you have a job, so you have a regular source of income, so you've got to find some way of getting sacked from there. And I like games that make you do something different. That we're always talking in games about being the person who's the fastest, has the most points, has the biggest name, has has the big. Where this one, you have to think differently. I think my best example of that is Why First, which is a very fast race game where you have to come second. Because that changes the game completely. You know, it's easy to. There's a certain strategy for coming first in a race game or coming last in a race game, but it's a very different strategy when you have to come second. And last will be, yes, you're having to be the person with the least money, but you've got to strategize. You've got to set your soul out and know exactly what you're going to do to try and burn through your cash as quickly as possible. And there's almost an innate resistance to getting rid of cash. And having to sort of fight against that in yourself is really fun to see. But it's a fantastic game. It's a little on the heavier side, although not as heavy as some people might say it is. But it's very much, I enjoy it a lot, and I think it's great. Now, whilst I'm not a Monopoly fan, my daughter Saffron is and has a few Monopoly sets. But I introduced her to this game, which is Chinatown. There is a remake of sorts of Chinatown called Waterfall Park, which effectively took Chinatown and just simplified it all down into a kind of fun fair motif. It looks kind of nice. I simply don't have it because I've got Chinatown. Chinatown takes all of it out. All the random, well, there is a random element, but I'll explain that. The game is literally, let's see, have we got the board? Yes, we have. We have the board at the bottom there. The game is literally, the game board is basically a bunch of shot plots, all numbered. And depending on the number of players, you will be dealt a number of shop cards, shop area cards, of which you will keep a subset of. And those shop plots are yours, so you'll put your little tokens on each of those to show that they're yours. You'll then get to draw, again, depending on the number of players and what round it is, a certain number of shop tiles. And you'll place them out face up in front of you. Once everyone's picked, then the negotiation begins. You can buy shop tiles from each other. You can buy shop plots from each other. You can swap. The game is completely negotiation. It's about doing the best deal. The only thing you can't do is change a shop tile once it's been placed on the board. So if I placed a dim sum on the board, that dim sum place might change owner, but it won't change what it is. It will always be dim sum. And what you're trying to do is create blocks of the same shop, because some of them you need 3, some of them you need 4, 5 or 6. And depending on how many you get will decide how much money you get back at the end of the round. And this goes on for 6 rounds. Literally, get new shop plots, get new shop tiles, negotiate, place tiles on the board, get money for tiles that are yours. Rinse and repeat for 6 rounds, and then at the end of the game, whoever's the most money is the winner. Simple, straightforward, and yet so complex, because you're dealing with human interaction. There are no dice. Everyone starts with the exact same amount of money. There is a bit of luck with the plot tiles you get, with what, areas of the board that you get to control at the start, and what shop tiles you get. So there's that random element every round. But other than that, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I think it's one of the best sort of pure, straightforward games that I own. Make the best deal, and after 6 rounds, come out ahead. I've heard some people complain that the final round is basically consolidation rather than negotiation. There's some truth to that. But that's the nature of a game where you're sort of deciding whether or not something's worth going for at that point because you need the points. Because you need the coin at the end. But it's a lovely game. I think it's fantastic, and I think everyone should just go out and buy it. If you can't find Chinatown for a decent price, and the idea of a negotiation game like that does interest you, maybe look at Waterfall Park. I haven't really looked at it because I've got Chinatown. Some people have said it's okay. Some people say it's oversimplified things, but you know that's a matter of personal taste for people. Your mileage might vary. My final game on my list will seem a bit of an odd one for people, and that is Power Grid. Now, people might say, hold on a minute, Ron, what the hell has Power Grid got to do with Monopoly? Well, nothing, and yet for me, everything. Because for me, Power Grid does what little I do like about the idea of Monopoly so much better. Again, there's no dice. There's no randomization. You start with a certain amount of money. And the turn structure is very simple. You are the first part of the round is buying power stations. If you're buying one of them, that's a bidding war. Then you're buying resources to power those stations. Different stations will require different amounts of resources of different kinds. Some of them don't require resources at all. And then you can build into towns that those power stations will power. And that will get you money back to spend in the rounds. Unlike a lot of games, getting the most money is not the goal of the game. The goal of the game is once someone has built in a certain number of cities, the game will finish at the end of that round, and then it's the person who can power the most cities. So for the power stations can all power a certain amount of cities. So for example, if the threshold is 18, which is for 4 players, I could build 18 and trigger the end game. But if my power stations will only let me power 16, and someone else has got 17 stations down, but they can power 17, they would actually win, even though I've built in more cities, because they can power more stations than I can, power more cities than I can. It's all about reading the board, looking where other people are going, where you place your cities, trying to maximize the amount of money you've got, because money only comes into it other than the fact that it greases everything. You need money to buy power stations, you need money to buy resources, you need money to lay down buildings on the board. And at the end of the game, if there's a tie for the amount of buildings that you can power, it's the person with the most money in hand that wins. I think Power Station is absolutely magnificent as a game. I don't have. I just have the standard game. I do. I know there's been a reloaded version which changed some of the rules. I haven't played that. I've just got that version. I don't have any of the other maps either. I've just got the base game with the America and Germany maps. Um, I've not really seen a need to buy any of the other maps, although I'm not against the idea. Simply because I think the game works regardless because it's always a new challenge every time. Even though the initial setup is the same, it's always a new challenge, and I like that about any game where there's lots of replay value. So those are my 10. I do have other economic games. I've got some of the Martin Wallace stuff. I've got London, the second edition. I've got Brass Birmingham. Brass Birmingham was Martin Wallace and I've got Anno 1800. I've got Godfather Corleone's Empire. I've got Machikoro, I suppose, would count as an economic game as well in that regard. Raccoon Tycoon, which I picked up I got at Christmas. Furnace, which I also got at Christmas. But they're great games, but in response to what 10 games would I play rather than Monopoly that are still sort of economic themed sort of games to some degree, those are my top 10. I think if you're a game player who hasn't tried a particular one of those 10, maybe give it a look. There's plenty of YouTube videos on all of them, actually. And if you're not really a heavy gamer, maybe you haven't heard of all of them, have a look. If you're a heavy gamer and you've maybe considered, maybe I'd like to do a light game sometime, maybe play one of those light games, have a look. Don't be afraid to have a light game or two in your deck. But thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll be back soon with another video.